I'm here to set the stage, and the first thing that I want to know is, have any of you all in the room or online heard of the Maryland Justice Passport? So go ahead and log into the Slido. Let us know if you've heard of it. While you figure that out, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're here. So I started my legal career at a self-help center. Have any of you in the room done brief advice before or worked in a self-help setting? Yes, awesome. So you all know it is like an emergency room for the legal world, right? Yes, you're nodding. It is fast-paced, it's quick and dirty. People come in, you never know what you're gonna get. It could be rent court, it could be family law, it could be medical malpractice. It really, truly runs the gamut. Wow, this is interesting. Okay, so 71% have not heard of the Maryland Justice Passport. Thanks for responding. Keep going if you'd like. This is gonna help us so that we don't cover things that you already know. All right, so back to self-help centers. They are the emergency room of the legal world. They're relentless, they're fast-paced. Again, like an emergency room, self-help centers don't solve all the problems, right? They make tons of different referrals. If you go to an emergency room and you need plastic surgery, they're not gonna do it right there. They're gonna refer you out. So in my first job, I worked at a high-volume self-help center. We made a ton of referrals to different places, legal services, the private bar, rental assistance, all kinds of different places. And all of those places that you all identified when you were walking in this morning. We call this the chaos slide. This is a visual depiction of just the legal services providers alone, just legal services in the state of Maryland. We have an embarrassment of riches. These are tons of amazing organizations that do a ton of great legal work. And when I would make referrals from self-help centers to many of these legal services organizations, we had constant rebounds. People were always coming back. They would forget where they were referred, or they would maybe reach one of these organizations, but they weren't doing intake that day, or intake was closed because they were at capacity. And so people would bounce back. They would still have no lawyer. They would still be unrepresented. They would have a hearing and they'd forget to bring their lease agreement or their receipts or whatever other evidence that they needed. And it was just not a great situation. So out of this landscape, this chaos slide here, the multitude of providers, the rebounds, all of that, came the idea for technology to solve this problem. And that's the tech that we're gonna talk about today, called the Maryland Justice Passport. We thought there has to be a better way to make referrals to legal and non-legal resources to help people get organized, to help them keep track of their important paperwork, and to help them remember what their next steps are, when to file a motion, or on what day to appear for court. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Carrie and Joseph, and they're gonna talk about the technology, the Maryland Justice Passport, that we use to help solve this problem.
Thanks, Lonnie. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what exactly the Maryland Justice Passport is. And basically, the Maryland Justice Passport, also known as MJP, is a trauma-informed technology that helps people navigate the legal system while getting and staying organized for their case. It's a platform that allows the litigant to be in control with a secure portal of information and resources that are available to them. It also streamlines the process of getting legal help and the process of providing legal help for organizations. Next slide. So this slide is a little bit what I like to call a pathway of a passport. On the left-hand side, there are the different ways that a passport can be created. As Lonnie referenced, a significant portion of a passports come from the court help centers, specifically the Maryland Center for Legal Assistance. They create the passport, other partner organizations can create a passport, and litigants themselves can create their own passport. The originator enters information into the passport related to the litigant's case, including a detailed summary explaining the legal issue. We've all been there where you're talking with an individual, they're trying to explain their legal issue, and they go on and on and on because they're very upset and overwhelmed, and they're focusing on these parts over here, but the real heart of the legal issue is this issue right here. So the case summary gets created to focus on the specific actual legal issue, and it's curated, what we like to call a warm referral. It also allows the litigant to not have to tell their story multiple times. As I said, a curated case summary focuses on that legal issue, and then they don't have to tell it over and over again. The originator of the passport also enters referral information so the litigant knows where they're going to next for assistance. Legal issues do not exist in a silo. There's other services that may be needed. For example, if you're dealing with a foreclosure issue, they may need housing counseling. If they're dealing with a landlord-tenant issue, they may need rental assistance, which Tommy will talk about much later. Passports can be generated also by, like I said, by litigants themselves. Majority of them do start out at help centers. And we're very excited that the passport shows that the warm referral can then go to any of these multiple services, whether legal services, housing counseling, rental assistance, all of it is going to work together.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so one way to think about this is that when someone gets a referral currently, maybe from one of your organizations, perhaps they get a phone number or a website. So, I think what Sarah Coffee Bowes here, who's in the audience, thank you, Sarah, and Lonnie in the group, has said, we can do better. So that's the session title, is there's a better way to do this. So one way I like to think about it is, what if we try to be awesome and amazing at referrals rather than just give a phone number or a website? And so that's what this is about. And you see a lot of these features here. So this is the concept of, okay, we're going to be awesome at this, and really what can we do to every possibility to get this person to that organization. And one of those is to work from the same information. And that's why there is this portal or passport. So I'll talk about these features in light of this project. So first one is that when the Maryland Center for Legal Assistance, which we'll talk more about, puts in a referral, that gives access to the litigant to the information about that organization. The organization also gets access to information about the litigant. Then when they put in the passport, they also will put in the summary, as Carrie mentioned, and notes. That gives all the organizations that are helping that person the background on that person's situation. Next, they get tasks, so they can go through and do their tasks and mark their progress. That allows everyone who's helping the person to know what the person has done and hasn't done. The next one is secure file storage. One thing that is interesting from a tech perspective is that a lot of people who need legal help, they don't have a secure way to store files or know how to do that. So we're saying, okay, you don't have to try to get a Gmail account and like OneDrive or Microsoft and OneDrive there. We're going to set this up for you. And when you put your files in, now the providers who are helping you can see those. And when providers put in files to the portal, also the litigant will be able to see those. So everyone is working from the same information. Next, important dates. For this project, a key date was that eviction date. So we would put the eviction date in the passport, and so everyone knew that key date that we were working on. Also, that was for as far as getting rental assistance, that's really important because you have to be within so many days of an eviction date. And then finally, as I mentioned, this passport was shared with the providers. Now, the litigant must give consent for that. And of course, they could take away that access at any point. They're essentially the owners of their passports. This allows everyone to see the same information. Back to you, Carrie.
So a big portion of what we do with the Maryland Justice Passport is we're strong believers in getting user feedback. That is the key to making sure that we're developing technology that, while we're up here thinking this works great, we want to make sure it's working great and it's being responsive to users and what they're looking for. So we do a significant amount of user testing, and we've received some feedback specifically related to using the passport for rental assistance. So, for example, we had an individual say, people just spitball a bunch of information at you. This breaks everything down for you in a very beginner-friendly way. Another individual said that it made them feel better. It wasn't just about the rental assistance, but getting legal help with their issue. And one more that we had was, it was very helpful to me, and I said, okay, we've got something going. It won't be too stressful now. And that's pretty powerful. Taking some of the fear out of, I'm about to lose my house, I'm about to lose my apartment, and giving them some knowledge. They say knowledge is power. It's really allowing people to take some of the fear out of it, and therefore they can make better informed decisions. And then the last comment was, I can actually tell what I'm doing. So we're really happy to keep going forward with this. But how did all of this happen? And Tommy will talk more about that.
That is a great question, Carrie. So I come at this from the Maryland Court Help Center angle. So our organization operates a remote call center that covers the entire state of Maryland, and we have 10 walk-in offices across the state. And in 2023, we had just shy of 180,000 pro se litigant consults. So we are very, very high volume, very, very fast paced. Consults are down and dirty, like Lonnie said earlier.
He said 180,000, if you didn't hear that. 180,000 instances of service.
Yeah. I'll probably say it.
Yeah, seriously. That's bonkers.
Those calls
They
not
are
go to
the
me, that goes
epitome.
to my staff. They're
The
amazing.
epitome of a high volume program. All right, I'll stop.
So to give a little background about rental assistance in Maryland during the COVID-19 pandemic and shortly after, there was some money allotted to the state. I'm sure a lot of your states had similar programs, but a lot of money was given to Maryland to help people that were about to be evicted. The process was supposed to work kind of like this, where the tenant applies either through a hotline or an online portal. They submit their application, it's evaluated, the landlord is contacted, they agree to participate or not. If the landlord agrees, then they move forward, cancel the eviction, and then the money's released to the landlord. It didn't really shake out this way though, because the tenants were applying on the portals umpteen times or calling into the hotline 100 times because they're stressed out. They don't know what to do and they're not getting answers. So they're just calling and submitting applications. So it just clogged up the whole system. So the rental assistance programs couldn't process applications, and a lot of landlords kind of got burned by this process and then were turned off by the whole rental assistance process because they didn't get their money, they canceled their eviction, and they have a tenant that's living rent-free. So landlords weren't happy, tenants weren't happy, really nobody was happy with the status quo. So how did our program differ and how was it so successful? Well, the way it came about was the United Way of Central Maryland, who we partnered with, was allotted $10 million for rental assistance for Baltimore City residents specifically. They weren't sure how to distribute the money. They didn't have systems in place. They didn't have the infrastructure in place to open up their own call center or to have their own online portal staff. And they wanted to avoid the pitfalls like we talked about of the other rental assistance programs. So they were looking for a partner. They wanted somebody that could kind of help them through this process so they didn't have to pump the brakes and try to develop a whole new system and strategy. And that's where the Maryland Court Help Centers and Maryland Center for Legal Assistance comes in. So Civil Justice, Carrie and Sarah's organization, sent an email introducing me to Scott Gottbrit, the VP of Housing for the United Way. And we agreed to have a meeting, and he revealed his problem to me. And I immediately was like, the passport can fix this. We can do this with the Maryland Justice Passport. And he looked at me like, huh? Like, what is that? So we explained it to him, and he was like, okay, let me get with my people, and we'll see if this is something we could do. So it ended up that he was interested. He may have been shopping around for other partners. Maybe he didn't believe me because I was so confident that we could help him with this. But eventually he came back, and we were able to schedule a meeting. He got his team together. I had my team put together, and we did a passport presentation and tutorial, showed them all how it worked, and they were blown away. We had holidays and sicknesses and things like that, cold and flu season. So we weren't able to start right away. But MCLA, my organization, and Civil Justice and United Way, we had a planning meeting. We talked about how we were going to get this started, how we were going to onboard the United Way, and how we were going to develop a workflow. So that was January 31st. We figured we've got a little bit of time here. We can plan this out. We're going to do this right. We get an email the next day that Baltimore City Rental Assistance Program is shutting down, so we have to go now. They wanted to know if we could start on February 6th, and we said, yeah, let's do it. Why not? We're not doing anything else, so let's try to do this. So we have an emergency planning meeting with everybody involved. We're throwing things together. We come up with ideas. We're like, all right, we can do this. And we're going to start on Monday, February 6th. But United Way needed another day at least. And I had absolutely no objection to that because we needed probably 3-4 more weeks to get ready. But we pushed through and started, and it began February 7th. And it was challenges everywhere we looked, as you could imagine. Organizational buy-in, that was a big thing on my end because I had people within my organization that were like, are you crazy? How can we do this on top of everything we're already doing? Again, 180,000 litigants last year or consults last year. How do we add something like this on top of that? But it's like, to heck with that. Like, there's no way we can walk away from this. Like, the people we're serving need rental assistance. We're perfectly situated to connect them to the United Way because they're all coming to us. So there doesn't need to be any advertising campaigns, nothing like that. We're seeing these litigants in our Baltimore City walk-in office. So they're coming right from court, or they're coming after they get a notice that their eviction's happening in 1 or 2 days. So they're coming to us. I didn't care about all of those challenges organizationally. I said, we're doing it. And we did it. Local government involvement, that was another major concern because the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success was operating the Baltimore City Rental Assistance Program, and that was one of the programs that was causing a lot of concern on the landlord side because they weren't getting the money, applications weren't getting processed, and that becomes an issue a little bit later we'll talk about. Landlord buy-in, exactly. That's a lot of fake news out there about what each rental assistance program could do, what the conditions were that were tied into receiving the money for each program. So there was a lot of rumors, a lot of landlords would talk to each other and they just weren't interested in buying into another one of these rental assistance programs where tenants continue to live in the house and they don't get the money. And then managing unrelenting demand because we expect more and more litigants to seek our services and what their expectations would be because a lot of them, they're coming to us with 1 or 2 days before their eviction and they need help. They're desperate. They're in a terrible situation and we're their last hope. So managing expectations when we can't guarantee an outcome is something that's a challenge. Demand, I think, was the biggest concern. Our referral coordinator program, we have 2 referral coordinators. And I'll get into the process in a second. But I have 2 people that are screening litigants and processing the passport. So how are they going to be able to keep up with this? Is the passport going to be able to handle this? It's never been used in this way. Is it going to be able to handle this increased capacity? How do we incorporate this into our Baltimore City walk-in office that between 4 attorneys sees an average of 730 litigants a month? That's like 8,800 litigants a year that they see for walk-in consults. And how are we going to just on the fly create this whole process and make sure that it works because people are counting on us. So we can't just, if we're in it all the way. We can't be half in and fool around. Like this is something very serious. So we were committed. So this is a little highlight of our passport workflow. This is just the general workflow, the way it works. So a litigant would come into one of our offices or call on our hotline or even our online chat service and get legal advice from one of our attorneys. If one of our attorneys feels that the litigant's issue is ripe for a referral to one of our referral partners, they will then send that litigant to one of our referral coordinators to create the passport. And this is where the magic of the passport really happens. This is where it gets, the tech makes a solution to a huge problem. So our referral coordinators screen out the litigants' income guidelines, conflicts checks, they'll upload documents, anything that the referral partner might need signed. We can get that signed and uploaded into the system so that when they receive that referral, after the passport's created, they're notified that a referral's been created for them. They have everything they need to complete their intake. The litigant has already been screened out. So they know when they get something from us, it is a quality referral. It's not just a shotgun approach. We're just sending you every litigant that could possibly need help. We're sending you people that you can help. that fit within your guidelines. So that's how we're able to build successful relationships with all these different referral partners. We have, I think, 25 or 27 referral partners now, different organizations across the state of Maryland that help with a wide range of things: mediation, housing counseling, things that we never imagined when we started this project, in addition to potential legal representation. So we've expanded, and nobody ever thought we would use this for rental assistance, yet here we are. So for this workflow, to start out, one of the things we decided to do that we could leverage the tech power of the Passport was creating document packets that were going to be uploaded into the Passport so that the litigant would have it and the United Way would have everything that they need. A rental assistance referral info, so the litigant had all the information they need about the United Way program. Our referral coordinator agreement, so that the litigant understood all the parameters of the service that my referral coordinators were providing. The release of information that the United Way needed the litigant to sign in order to have permission to talk to the landlord, and their disclaimer, just stating that they couldn't guarantee success, but they were going to do everything they could. So all those documents, those upfront documents, can be instantly put into the Passport so that the partner has it. There's no back and forth between the United Way and the litigant trying to get documents signed, trying to get information. It's all there from the get-go. And that's a reason that some of the other rental assistance programs failed. If you remember the process that we showed you, sometimes things were stalled because one document wasn't signed or something didn't get to where it needed to go. But the Passport solves that. It's all in one spot, and it goes where it needs to go so that the litigant can get the help that they need. So we decided when we started, because we were just diving right in, figuring this out as we went, fake it till you make it, I guess, that we were going to start off with 2 different tracks. Most litigants were coming in because they were looking for legal advice. So we were going to have one track where people seeking legal advice and rental assistance could sign in. And we were going to try to streamline another track where people only seeking rental assistance would sign in, and we would kind of handle them off on the side so that we could move things through quickly. But I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Nobody wanted just rental assistance. Everybody wanted some legal advice too, because why not? It's free. So, you get to talk. When do you get to talk to an attorney for free? So you get a full evaluation of your case and all the necessary referrals. And we were distributing the document pack and creating the passports. So we decided we needed to have a lot of check-ins. We needed to keep communication ongoing constantly between all the organizations involved here. Again, it's the mayor's office, it's my organization, Civil Justice, and United Way. 4 organizations working together, all trying to pull in the same direction. So if you're not communicating constantly, if you're not on the same page, you're doomed to failure, and everyone was in. So our first check-in, we all shared the good and bad and the ugly of our first week experiences, and learned from them and made changes to our process as a result of that. One of the major takeaways that we got from the United Way was that landlords weren't interested in participating. Again, all the rumors and fake news out there about the rental assistance programs, and how do we combat that? How do we let landlords know this is something you can believe in? This is something that will work. So, every once in a while I have a good idea. So I had a light bulb go off over my head, and I was like, hey, why don't you guys, United Way, create a fact sheet with your logo on it? Everybody knows who you are. You've got clout. United Way has been around a long time. They're respected. You see advertising for them all the time. They've got great name recognition. So I was like, hey, create a fact sheet. Let's dispel all these rumors. Let the landlords know everything about your program. Be upfront about all the requirements, any concessions they may need to make, and what the process is. So Scott from the United Way was like, okay, I think we might be able to do this. I'm gonna have to run it up the chain and get permission from the board. So he said he was gonna work on that. And that becomes, I think, pivotal later. And then we figured we needed to establish some better procedures for extremely time-sensitive cases. Some people were coming into our office with an eviction scheduled the next day. So how do we help those people? We can't just say, sorry, you don't have enough time. We want to try to make sure that we can do everything we can for them. So everyone was very, very flexible and agreed to changes that would help the litigants. Everyone was litigant focused, and I think that was a key thing here. not worrying about the trouble that it would bring to your organization, focusing on the litigant and what they're going through and how you're going to help them. So that was key, and everybody had that same mentality. So we changed some things to the workflow because that demand issue was popping up when we had an overflow of litigants in our lobbies, and how do you get to them all? So we decided to kind of change up our tracks and have tracks based on when an eviction is scheduled, so that way we could prioritize the creation of the passports to line up with who needs it more urgently. So the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, they had an office on the second floor of the courthouse. My organization's office was on the third floor. And they just had a little office, kind of like a closet. They didn't have a printer or a scanner, which I think definitely contributed to the problems they had in operating the rental assistance program. But they were there and they were sending litigants to us. And at first, they were just sending everybody. I guess they were just pointing, just go there, instead of doing an intake on their own. So we had them start creating a log so that anybody that had an eviction scheduled outside of 5 business days, we would get their information and we would contact them at a later date so that we could fully address everyone that needed something imminently. And on our end, we started creating passports immediately if the eviction was within 5 days, and then created our own log and handed out documents for people that were beyond that date. Our second check-in, about 17 days later, we learned that 74 referrals had been created. And so this is 10 days into the project, and we already have 74 referrals. That's already shatters any record that the passport had for any previous month. And we still had referrals going on for other organizations as well. So the referral coordinators were working double time to get all this done. We decided to prioritize time-sensitive matters. So civil justice was creating passports that needed to be created immediately, Monday through Thursday, and non-time sensitive were on Friday. So that's another change that we made to help streamline the process. And then I decided we need more people on this. So I had some administrative assistants from some of our other walk-in offices who may have had a little bit of downtime because their offices weren't as busy, working on that log of people that didn't have an eviction imminently scheduled. So that way we were making sure we kept up with those logs and everyone that needed to be processed was processed. And we were still awaiting the approval of the United Way fact sheet, but I kept pushing for it. Every time I saw Scott, where's my fact sheet? Where's my fact sheet? He probably got tired of hearing it, but I was not giving up on it. Our third check-in, about 30 days later, the fact sheet's approved, yay. And we learned that in February, we had 92 total referrals out of our Baltimore City office for rental assistance, which was incredible. We knew the demand was going to be there, but we didn't know if we'd be able to handle the capacity, but we were.
One office, 3 weeks, 92 referrals.
Yeah,
That's
pretty crazy. Yeah, 4 attorneys. Our fourth check-in, more process changes. This was about 6 weeks later, and the fact sheet was finally provided. I was super excited because I think it's a game changer. United Way was then very concerned about the volume they were receiving, and they asked if we could only create passports and send them over to them when an eviction is actually scheduled. That way they weren't working through ones that weren't time sensitive. So we decided, okay, we can do that, and we'll just create different systems on our end to make sure we can keep track of whoever else is going to need some eviction relief in the future. So we created a new document packet for litigants, an eviction not scheduled packet. And this is something where the fact sheet comes in because we were able to give the litigants the fact sheet and give them some instructions, tell them what to do, and advise them to return when their eviction is scheduled and if their landlord is potentially interested in participating in this program. So that was a way of cutting back on a lot of the backlog in the offices. One of the great things about the passport, to cut down on the backlog, we had a lot of people coming in because they wanted updates. What's going on with my rental assistance? I don't know what's going on. So we had and some people couldn't access their passport on their own. You can get an app, you can go online, so you can follow this process from beginning to end. But not everybody has that access to the internet at home or really has the understanding to know how to navigate using an app or things like that. So we had a lot of people coming into our office looking for updates. And we don't have that information. United Way has the information at that time, but we were able to have the administrative assistant in that office access the passports for people. So opening up their passports, showing them how to do it, giving them a tutorial essentially, and showing them, look, this is where you check and see the status. Okay, United Way received everything. They've got all the documents. They reached out to the landlord. So that way we were able to use the passport to easily show people where they were in the process. And that gets back to one of those comments that Carrie shared about when someone said, I can really see, something's going, we got something cooking here. I feel better about things because they can see the process is working. It's not, I called the rental assistance hotline and I don't know what's happening. It's, wow, okay, people are actually working. This platform is working. Like, I've got a chance here. And then something else that we learned in this fourth meeting, that the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success was out. They were moving out of their little closet in the courthouse. And that was a good thing for us because when they were creating logs and sending them to us, it allowed for some of the problems that were in their rental assistance programs to start to creep into ours. The incomplete logs, missing information, just things that prevented us from fully assisting litigants. So that was a good thing. So we were happy about that. I don't know how you operate an office without a printer and a scanner, but I'm from Baltimore. We can do better than that. So here's the fact sheet. And you can see it gives all the information that a landlord would need to decide if they want to participate in this program. And I think the key thing on this fact sheet is that United Way logo. Again, that has such name recognition that makes you immediately forget about all the stories and nightmares that you may have heard from your uncle or brother who rents properties and got burned by one of these programs. Or, if you were burned yourself, you can say, okay, this is United Way. This is real. This isn't a fly-by-night operation. So we were able to hand litigants a copy of this and upload it to their passport and put it in their task section as something that they needed to do. Talk to your landlord about this. So by uploading it into the passport, it made it super easy for litigants to email a copy of it or even just text it to their landlord. Because not everybody wants to go have a face-to-face talk with their landlord and hand them when you're 8 months behind on rent, your landlord isn't really your best friend. So it can be really intimidating to approach a landlord to engage in this type of rental assistance program when they're already hot under the collar. So this was a way to kind of give the landlord some assurances that this is real, this can happen, just participate. And then we set our 3 final workflows. And this is things we're starting to really, we were figuring this out. Baltimore City had rental assistance going on for 1.5 years, 2 years, and it wasn't working. We figured this out in 2 months, which is incredible. And it really is a testament to all the organizations involved being completely committed to a litigant-centric approach and having the tech that allowed you to do that. Because without the passport, this is impossible. We can all work together as well as we want. If we don't have a platform that we can use to move this information back and forth without the litigant having to get ping pong between organizations, it just doesn't work. So we arrived at our 3 final workflows that were working, and then we spent all of United Way's money and the project ended. We're hoping that we can resume again. We're hoping to get some more funding. But here's the results that we saw. 395 passports were created just for rental assistance from February 7th to May 3rd. And again, credit to my referral coordinators. There were other passports being created for many other things during this time, but they powered through it, and I couldn't be more grateful. 260 referrals were created when an eviction was already scheduled. So this is somebody that's coming into our office in a panic because they're going to be on the streets in 2 days. They've got kids, they've got pets, all of their belongings. In Baltimore City, when you're evicted, they just lock the door. All of your stuff's in the house and it's considered abandoned. So people lose everything. So it's a huge thing. That's why I was like, there's no way we're walking away from this opportunity. Challenges be damned, we're doing this. So And we were able to confirm that there were 164 evictions canceled. So, and that's not 164 people, that's 164 families, sometimes multiple generations, grandparents, parents, children, all living in the same home who were days away from homelessness and losing all their possessions. So that's hundreds of people whose housing situation was saved. And there's reason to believe that the number is actually 252, but we don't have that on paper, so we can't put it on the slide, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So there's a lot of people that were helped, and it's a credit to the tech and the people, because it takes everything working together and being willing to take risks. Like the United Way took a huge risk getting involved in this. They don't know, like, who's this joker talking about this passport thing, and why is he so confident that this is gonna work? But they did. They took a risk, and they joined up with us, and it all worked out. There were bumps along the way, but working together, we all overcame that, and kept the goal in sight, and that is saving people's housing. And that's what we did, and I'm hoping we can do it again soon. Joseph?
Awesome, Tommy. Just want to mention a few people that are key to the day-to-day operation of the Maryland Justice Passport. The first is Nicole Kiker. She's the Maryland Justice Passport Program Manager at Civil Justice. And then Jenna Grieber, who is the lead referral coordinator at Maryland Center for Legal Assistance. And so I just want to make sure people know that this is not a tech-only solution. You need program managers to work with people to train partners on how to use the passport and litigants. And then also to then filter information and say, okay, here's what I think the most important features are to build next. And then communicate with Carrie and I on that.
All right, so now you all know what Maryland did. So we want to know, what would you do in your jurisdiction? It's so important to have the tech. It's so important to have the people behind the tech, the upstream thinkers, the people like Tommy who didn't just say no. We're already serving 180,000 people a year. We don't need this. People that are going to say yes. This is going to be challenging, but we can do it. So we want to know the issues that you face in your jurisdictions. We're going to break into small groups and discuss your referral issues. So we don't have a ton of time here. If you could just kind of pair up and like geographically, I don't know what the term is, whatever that means. Talk about your process problems. If you have maybe your own chaos slide in your state. If you're online, you can just jot down some notes so that you're thinking about these things. And then think about a couple of solutions. And I say bad ideas only because a lot of times people are quick to say, oh, that would never work, we can't do that. But we up here, we're yes people. So if you have bad ideas, write them down, run with them, don't limit yourself. We're gonna have people report out in a few minutes to the group. So let's take probably, 8 minutes or so and think through these questions. And then the four of us will walk around if you guys need help. All right? Pair up. Group up or pair up. All right, we are going to report out. I don't know if that mic's hot. All right, guys, we're going to come back together and we're going to hear from some of our groups. I think I have a slide for this. All right, so we're going to talk about the process problems that your groups identified and then any solutions that you might have. Sorry. I get to pretend to be a game show host, so this is fun.
We need some music.
There's music in my head. All right, why don't you tell us your name and maybe some of the issues that your group talked about.
My name is Thomas Trent, and I'm from South Carolina Legal Services. And the biggest process problem that we had, believe it or not, was getting all the legal services groups wanting to participate for fear of the volume, for fear of and sometimes we don't play very well together for some odd reason. And we're the only legal service, the LSC funded legal services in South Carolina. So as a beginning of an Access to Justice project, we started a legal services provider Zoom meeting once a month. And we continued to have programs identify what they did, trying to eliminate the duplicity, and finally trying to get them all on a board. Now we're like if y'all are 2 point, we're like 1.5 because what currently, unless there's been changes from our from the Access to Justice website, when I started with it, we were the ones that were spitting out the information, the referrals, the website contacts. So what we had to, the other problem was the way that our legislature mucked up the payment process, because it didn't go to one person, it went to 4 governments and then South Carolina State Housing. So we had to deal with that and had to deal with the process of trying to simplify the application process, because they had a hard and fast rule. If you did a second application because you were afraid that you were going to be evicted, both applications would be rejected and you went all the way back to the end of the. So there were a ton of problems, and so we kept these meetings up monthly to try to resolve some of that. And the biggest thing is we collaborate a lot better now because we know who we all are and what we all do.
That's helpful, and know you're not alone. Like, every state has these issues, but the providers maybe not playing well together in the sandbox, so we get it. Anyone else want to share process problems? Oh, come on, you guys. All right, I knew it.
I can go for our group. So I'm Janelle. I work in the intake unit at Legal Action of Wisconsin and Milwaukee. So a few issues that came up were attorney-client relationship, eligibility criteria, just limited service areas or grant restrictions with different organizations, and then maintenance on those. And then for referrals from service providers, like what is actually a legal issue and when is it appropriate to refer? And then just kind of getting to know each of the organizations and the players, like what does everybody do and where do the pieces fit? So those were kind of the challenges. We identified more challenges than solutions, I guess.
Hey, it's a 2-step process. You got to start somewhere, right? All right, who else? Other process issues?
There's one over here.
Oh, perfect. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Cynthia with Legal Aid Chicago, and my group also had Michigan and Louisiana represented. And we sort of identified the floodgate problem, capacity, and expectations are all kind of blended together. And our idea is if there's some way to kind of have real time, like open and close of how many referrals you could accept, if you have a wait list, how long the wait is, so that if there's this central like referral hub, that it's not just like, oh, well, we know that they do. We know they do housing counseling, but we don't know if they're actually open or can take your case. So like more kind of real-time capacity management within the portal.
I love that. That's a great idea. So what solutions? That was one, right? A real-time portal. Other solutions that you guys came up with in your groups?
So Lonnie, let me interrupt for just 1 second.
Oh, yes.
So all the information and everything you just said actually went into our redesign of the passport. We launched 2.0 version of the passport in July, and we wanted to capture that real-time information. A lot of these legal service programs have multiple programs under their main umbrella. So we developed a system inside the passport that allowed them to have an organizational profile. Then under that, they have program listings, and then the notifications can be set. So maybe you have a landlord-tenant clinic, but you're at capacity. You can turn off referrals and you won't get referrals anymore. So we wanted to give the organizations that power to control their own workflow, because they know what they can accept and what they can't accept and what their volume is. And especially something like the summer, people go on vacation. So
And the data too coming out of this is helpful to show to funders and state legislatures. Like, there is huge need and we just don't have capacity. So I think data can really help tell the story of where, government and other organizations can fill in with cash money. Anyone else with solutions? Sarah, you're not loud enough. You think you are, but you're not.
I think one thing that struck me, we didn't get to address kind of an actual issue. We more talked about kind of your actual presentation. But one thing that struck me, even though I've been doing this for a while, is that I think often we feel like, oh, we're on our own as an organization, but that it took time, to your point about getting folks to communicate, it took time to build relationships, trusting relationships, not just with other legal services organizations. So like in this scenario, we had a standing relationship with the United Way of Central Maryland because we're working on coordinated intake for tenants facing eviction. And so the importance of relationships came up when somebody, I don't know who, Tommy, said, this is a mess, it's not working. And we said, well, you two talk and see what you want to do. So it was like that growing of a can-do, we're here to help people culture. And then it grew into these trusting relationships where we can kind of reach out to each other and actually tackle problems without feeling, threatened or judged or anything like that. So that's just something that struck me after 4 years of doing this.
The people and the tech, right? Did you have a solution? Yeah. See how fast I can run.
Daniel Benz was Legal Aid of San Diego. So related to the rental assistance problem you brought about payments being made, so we had that problem also. And so we adjusted the way we actually went after money to include what we call flex funds, so we get that money as part of other sources of funding. So that way we're able to, in the middle of litigating a case, decide we're gonna fund this to settle this case or move this person out to keep their housing or keep them in the rental unit because they have the funds to stay there and they're just behind. So we've done that, has been going after other funding sources or larger funding sources and talking to the funder saying, we'll use part of that money to provide the assistance along with the staffing in order to deal with that problem, which was always there, which is trying to work with a third party to, like you said, get the landlord, get the whatever. But now we're dealing with the attorneys, right, in court of the landlords, getting a settlement agreement, term out when the payments are due. And so that's where we've changed how our practice is to help our clients with that problem.
That's a really interesting way to kind of capture efficiencies. I love that. Well, of course, we're running behind. Let's do this. What's next? Q&A?
Q&A.
Q&A. All right. Question and answer. I think some people wanted to see the passport. Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. Client confidentiality. Sorry, now I'm screaming. That was the question. How do you guys address client confidentiality in the passport?
Well, with my organization, we offer brief advice. So our attorney-client relationship is very, very brief. And that's one of the documents that we have people sign is our referral coordinator agreement that lets people know that it's a limited relationship and they give us permission to share their information. So they're waiving confidentiality in order for us to provide information to another legal service provider who we can't guarantee is going to be able to help, but they're going to be able to look at the information to do conflicts checks, review it to see if it's a case type they can handle. So it's essentially we get a waiver signed.
But the passport's unique because it's litigant focused. So instead of putting the onus on the organization, it's really the litigant. They can grant access to different organizations who can go into the passport and review their information. So intake, usually you want to see if there's a case that's been filed. You want to see the court paperwork or whatever. So they can actually grant access to a provider to go in and see that stuff, and then they can get out if they have a conflict or otherwise can't take the case. Question over here, if you can yell and I'll repeat it for the live stream. Go ahead. Yes.
So my question is specifically with the 395 passports that you received in, how did you empirically track the quantitative kind of data that came from that, like whether or not the pro se litigants found it effective?
So the question was, how did you track whether the litigants found the passport effective, the 395 people?
I mean, that's Jenna. It's all Jenna. This doesn't happen, like Joseph said, this doesn't happen without Jenna
Jenna's
And-
a
and
referral coordinator.
Well, her official job title is project manager of the Maryland Justice Passport Referral Coordinator Program. So her business card's this big. But yeah, that's where you get to the people behind the technology. And that's all Jenna, and being the most organized person I've ever met in my life. I used to poke fun at her for all of her color coordinated stuff, but like,
Hey, color coordinating is good.
it works, because when you get to the type of volume that she was handling and tracking everybody and making sure that her team is on top of everything and nothing slips through the cracks, it's all organization. It's all the people behind the platform.
And so she puts in the passport, like I followed up on this date and here was the result. So there's a place in the passport too for where she puts all the notes about her follow-ups.
That's the cool thing about tech. Like, it's not going to solve all the problems. It's just going to streamline the old process, right? Like, one of the things that we talked about at the very beginning of this process was people coming in with that plastic bag of paperwork, right? That's where the whole idea for this came from. And things would get lost. They'd get left on the bus. And we're like, there's got to be a way that we can take all of that stuff, scan it somewhere, and put it in a place where they're not going to lose it. And really, that's kind of the basis of the passport. So I'm going to close quick. We can hang out if you guys have more questions. So find us after the session. But I did want to make sure to say thank you all for coming. Thank you to those joining on the live stream. If you all want to use strategic partnerships to improve client outcomes in your area, I hope you do. Do you? Good, good. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need tech, a good foundational technology in place, something like the Maryland Justice Passport. You're going to need the people. We've talked about that. None of this works without people that have that yes attitude, the proactive attitude, the people-centered attitude, the user focus. And last but not least, you're going to need funding. And this always scares people, but don't panic. There are sources of funding out there that you can leverage. And if you need help thinking that through, reach out to us. We will talk to you about it. Speaking of, here is where you can find us. These are our names. If you want to learn more about the passport, the website's up there. And I think there's some flyers that have come around you guys can check out. Again, thank you so much for spending the morning with us. We really appreciate it. We talked about the passport. We talked about the tech. We talked about the people. And we hope that you learned something today that you can take with you. So thanks.